It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Grind Line here at the Hockey Writers. I am your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, I'm joined in by my line mate, Devin Little. And as you can see, we got a new line mate as well, Evan Sabourin. Evan, welcome to the show. I'll let you take your rookie lap. How's it going?
Great, man. I'm really excited to be here, dude. I'm glad I joined the Red Wings team here, and I'm good to go. It's exciting.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. We've been a defense pairing for a bit here. We've had the occasional line, but we're now back to the grind line, which is the name of the show. So that's amazing. We're back to back to a line. Yeah, Devin, how's it going?
Oh, it's always good. Always good to be here. Always good to talk Red Wings. It's even better now that, like you said, we're an actual line now. No more back checking and playing defense. We can start scoring some goals, right?
Yeah, it's awesome. So, but before we get into this show, because we've got a lot to talk about with the Red Wings, not as successful as we've talked the last few weeks, hasn't been as amazing of weeks that we've talked about in the past, but we'll get into that. But before we get into the show, we got to talk about our new Substack that we've got at the Hockey Writers. Recently expanded our offerings to every team, as well as a general one for all the best articles that the site has. But as a Red Wings fan, you don't want to miss out on any of the great content we produce here. And our Red Wings Substack makes that possible. Sign up, get all the Hockey Writers Red Wings articles delivered directly to your inbox multiple times per week. We even offer a premium Substack subscription now that gives you access to exclusive content that you can't find anywhere else. Includes game chats, game day previews, specialized articles, and a lot more. Join now to get a discount on an annual subscription, and a sign-up link can be found in the video description. All right, well, as we do on this show every time, we have one good, one bad, and we'll get started with you, Evan. Good and a bad from this past week.
Well, I'll start with the bad because the bad was the power play. Bad week on the power play. Went 0 for 5 last night against the Panthers, 0 for 2 against the Islanders, and then 0 for 4 on Saturday versus the Bruins. Read this morning that they switched up the power play units. I actually wrote them down so I didn't mess them up. But Max Buttman tweeted out today that they're going to start. Ghost Despair is going to lead the point on the first power play with DeBrincat and Larkin on the flanks. DeBrincat and Raymond on the flanks. Then you got Larkin and Perron. Power play 2 is going to be Sider, Sprong, Comfer, Wallman, and Kopp. So they're looking to switch things up after a brutal week on the power play. We started off pretty well. The Red Wings started out pretty well on the power play at the beginning of the year, but things kind of went south quickly. So you got to switch things up and try to make things happen. So the Red Wings are in a little bit of a rut right now. I wouldn't say it's anything too concerning. With the roster turnover this team has had, it's going to take time to gel. And I think a lot of us, Red Wings fans and writers, got a little overexcited at the beginning here with this great start. And it is one of their best starts since they last made the playoffs in 2016. So, you got to take the good with the bad. And, this team is going to take a little time here to gel. The good for me right now, it's the play of Joe Veleno. I think he's really, really, really impressed me this season. If this guy can develop into a third line winger, or third line center for the future, I think we've really got something. Got to remember, he's still only 23 years old. He's already has 5 goals. He only had 8 all of last year in 81 games. So he's really come on. I've really enjoyed watching his zone entry. His play, you can just see the confidence booming inside of him. And he's been a really good part of this good start that they've, somewhat got on. So,
yeah, I agree with the power play. And of course, Veleno, we've talked about a lot on this show the last few weeks and before that as well. But definitely something that's going to have to improve. Power play was hot to start the season. So we'll have to see if they can do something. Maybe this, like you say, these new units will maybe spark something, but we'll see. Devin, over to you. A good and a bad from this past week here.
One good is going to be the return of Carter Mazer to the Grand Rapids Griffins lineup. Obviously, he's a very well-regarded prospect in this prospect pool. Went down with a injury during early on in training camp. So good to see him not only um, you know, back, got only healthy, but also playing games. He already played his
Mhm.
first game with the Griffins. Hopefully he it's the start of a good season for him because we were all kind of thinking maybe he'd have a shot at making the NHL roster before he went down with that injury. So big year, big season ahead for Carter Mazer, and good to see him back on the ice this week. And then my one bad is actually going to be Bally Sports. Um, and anybody who relies on their app, their website, or whatever to watch the Red Wings because they were not able to this week because they do not have their stuff, and I definitely would like to use a different word, um, together. Hopefully, they get that stuff taken care of so that people can watch their favorite teams again. Real frustrating situation. Um, it should be very easy to watch your local sports
Mhm.
teams, whether they're no matter what sport it is. So frustrating week for hockey fans and basketball fans and whatever across the state of Michigan.
Yeah, you should be able to rely on a network, especially a local one, to get to have your games, and that'd be frustrating for sure. To happen. Hopefully that gets figured out. My good is I was going to say Joe Veleno too, because I'm really happy that he's started to find his game, and he's been elevated to the second line in that same tweet that was sent out, that he's been put up to the right wing on the second line, which is amazing. He's bumped himself up in the fourth line. Now he's up to the second line. So we'll see if his hot streak can go. And who knows? He may end up being on the top line at some point. But I think that top line's going pretty well. I don't know if they're going to be wanting to do any changes there. Um, and Matt, Evan, you just read my mind. I had the power play too as my bad. So because it was something that was so good at the beginning of the season there, and it was basically was a reason for a lot of the wins, and now it's starting to struggle, and yeah, and that's maybe part of the reason why they've been losing some games and lately. So we'll hopefully like the new units can maybe, like you say, spark something, and we'll see how it goes. All right, let's move into our first segment of the episode here, and talking about that this last bit that's happened, and they gotten off to that hot streak, but it's over. They've only won one game in the last four, I believe, right? But they're still second in the Atlantic Division, surprisingly, thanks to that hot start and the other teams around them not doing as well. We'll start with you, Devin. What do you make of this? I mean, they're still, even with this little bit of a slump they've gotten into, they're still in a really good position to start this season. What do you think about this last bit of games here?
First and foremost, I think that I've been duped by the Boston Bruins because I was told they were going to fall off this year, and apparently they didn't get the memo. So shout out to them. Uh, Sooner or later that team has to fall off, right?
Yeah.
I hope for the Red Wings' sake. But no, in all seriousness, I think that this is proof of why it's important to bank as many wins and as many points as you can. Not just early on in the season, but just over the course of a season, because slumps do happen, right? Losses will come eventually. You're in a really tough division, and even when you're playing games outside of your division, you're still playing really good teams. Parity is a real thing in this league. Um, but like you said, Matt, their good, strong start is what has them still in second place. They banked enough wins and enough points to where they're surviving their current slump. Now, obviously, they're going to want to turn that around pretty soon here. They can't bank on everybody else in the Atlantic kind of stagnating. Uh, it's just not going to happen. There's too many good teams in this division. And I'm sure the Red Wings will, I'm sure they'll turn it around. I'm sure they're going to start getting some wins again. It'll be kind of be an up and down season, I imagine. But just to kind of hammer home the point. This is why you get, if you have a win in your hand, you got to do everything you can to seal it and get those 2 points, because you never know where you're going to be, a week from then or even months from then, where that one win you pulled out in late October is the difference between a playoff berth or a non-playoff berth. So good on the Red Wings for baking those points early on, and hopefully, as we progress through the rest of the season, they're able to continue to bank points along the way that keep them in the mix.
Yeah, because a lot of those teams aren't going to, they're probably going to bounce back. Those contending teams we've talked about many times, that they're going to get better. They're going to start winning, and that's where the Red Wings are going to have to stay in that and knock into these slumps too often. So yeah, we'll have to see how that all goes. Evan, what do you think about this? The Red Wings, like I say, their hot streak has kind of kept them in this mix of being in the top portion of that division. But what do you think about what that's going to be for moving forward for them?
Well, like we said, I think there's going to be lots of ups and downs this season, peaks and valleys. I'm not really too worried about it right now. I mean, we're a couple lucky bounces away from, you think back to the Kraken game, and don't even get me started on that thrown stick. Rasmussen had one last night that I think all three of us probably could have buried. We ran into a hot Bob last night, and it's not a drink that the kids are drinking now. It's a hot Sergei Bobrovsky, and he got the better of us last night. But it's going to take some time to gel. I mean, this is really a brand new roster, and you're seeing some of these kids come into their own. I'd like to see some veterans step up a little more. I haven't seen the David Perron that I'm used to seeing at the start of this season, so I'd like to see a little bit more out of him coming. And I really like the way Raymond's playing. I think the added weight and muscle he put on, he's not getting pushed off the puck as easily as he was in the past seasons. So I'm really impressed with him. And like I said, it's, give him some time. I'm really interested for, tomorrow night's game against the Bruins. I think that's going to be a good measuring stick for how they can bounce back, because, when you looked at the Islanders game on Monday, I mean, I was ready to turn that game off at, 3-1. And, there's something different about this team. And I think the fans and I think people are starting to realize that, there's like a different sense of pride or confidence or something, but the team's definitely playing better than I expected. And if you ask me if we had this start to the season, if I'd be happy with this, and yeah, I think I am. I think we jumped the gun on expectations a little with the hot start, and I know everyone was, and everything in the Detroit media was, but it's still early in the season. There's a lot of hockey left to be played. And it's hard to really make a good analysis after just, a handful of games here. So I'm confident. I'm waiting to see, I'm really excited, hopefully, to see Edvinsson get called up soon here. I really think it's time for him to get up. And I think that happens in the next month or so. I'm thinking probably before Christmas, unless there's an injury or something else. But I'm fairly confident with the way the team's playing. And looking forward to tomorrow night to see how they respond.
Yeah,
Evan's already calling for Edvinsson to get called up. He's gonna fit right in.
you need Edvinsson to get. We've talked about many times of him coming up. Hopefully that's soon. The Red Wings they're 6-5. I mean, 11 games in. I think saying a game over 500 to start the season, it's pretty good. To start. And lately a little bit of trouble scoring. They've only scored they did score the 3 in that, or the 4 in that Islanders win. But before that, only 2 goals, back-to-back 4-1 losses, and then that 2-0 one that you mentioned, Evan. So I mean, a bit of trouble scoring after quite a bit of time where they were scoring a bunch of goals, where they were just outscoring teams at the beginning of the season. And now, like I said about the goaltending, it's got to be better as well, because if you're not scoring goals, that goaltending is going to have to win you games. And right now, it's not. It's allowing quite a few. I mean, 2 in the last game, not too bad, but before that, quite a bit. All right, let's move into our first off the rush, and this time we're actually having a rush with a line. So my first question is on the new additions, and Evan, I'll start with you. Which new addition has impressed you the most? Now, the obvious answer is Alex DeBrincat, so maybe I'll take him out of the equation. But apart from him, who's impressed you the most here so far?
I'm glad you threw it to me first because I guarantee you guys are probably thinking the same thing, and it's got to be Daniel Sprong. I mean, he's been pretty impressive, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out how the Kraken let this guy go and not re-sign his guys. And they're struggling obviously, but yeah, that little toe drag goal he had the other night against the Islanders. I mean, his skating kind of reminds me of like he skates like an Oscar Sundqvist kind of guy, but with more talent.
Yeah.
And he can put the puck in the net. This guy can play, and we saw what his goals for expectancy was last year with the numbers. And yeah, I mean, I really like this guy. And yeah, I'm sorry I stole him from you guys because I know that's what you're going to say next. So.
There's a lot of players to choose from. Like you said, the roster's quite a bit different. So, Devin, who do you got? Who's impressed you the most apart from DeBrincat here?
Sprong is definitely a good choice. I'm gonna look on the blue line and say Gostisbehere. You kind of knew what to expect with him coming in, right? Like everyone knows he's a good offensive defenseman. Made a name for himself that way, but until you see him doing things up close and like you're really watching him because he's not in the other team, I don't think you really get an appreciation for what he does. And for what it's worth also, his defensive game is underplayed a bit. He's not like a big shutdown guy or anything, but he's not one of those one-dimensional offensive defensemen that like is useless in his own end. No, he can definitely get the puck moving the right way. And then also he's been a real bonus on the power play. I mean, that's another reason why you get a guy like that, right? Yeah. Is to boost the power play, and he's done that. I think just in general, just to kind of throw this out there, I think just about everybody that Eisman brought in over in the offseason has made the team better. I think you can maybe talk about one or two guys that haven't really done much yet, but the jury's still out, right? Still have plenty of time to make a difference. But generally speaking, everybody that he's brought in has made the lineup better in one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of real disappointments if you want to say like that you be kind of like, well, what the heck was he doing there? Petrie, maybe. I think he's maybe the one you could pick as a guy that's not really. I mean, I don't think he hasn't really impressed me. I could go take or leave him, but otherwise, yeah, there's so many guys that have been able to. You can point to something that they've added to the lineup and that's made the team better. So. We'll see. It's only, like I say, 11 games in, so there's a lot of time for these guys to continue, and maybe or that or the impressive start goes away, which hopefully that doesn't happen, but we'll see. All right, before we move into our second half of the show here, our comment corner, we got a couple questions from our normal contributors usually. I talk about the Substack that we got going. Make sure you're signing up for that. We've got, get the articles every, I think it's 3 times a week. The best articles on the website. There's also a premium Substack we got going right now. We got game day previews coming. We got lots of specialized articles are going to be coming out soon throughout the rest of the season. So definitely sign up for that. You'll get a discount, an annual subscription. Just into the description there, and hit that link and sign up. All right, let's get into our comment corner, and we'll start with a question from Lord Venom, one of our big time commenters. Thanks, Lord Venom, for the question. And his question is, do the Red Wings play better with an 11-7 lineup? They've done this quite a bit throughout the season here, because the start of the season, because of their extra defensemen that they've got, so that all of them get ice time. Start with you, Evan. Do they play better in that setup, or is it better to be that regular lineup?
Yeah, I'm still not sure on that one. And one thing that still confuses me is why they're playing with 3 goalies. Why there's 3 goalies on the roster. I'm just confused as to why some of these free agent signings that did come on, because the defenseman, it just seems too packed. Like I thought Evanson should have made this team.
Yeah.
I really thought he should have, especially after, he impressed last year, in his little 9-game stint. But I don't know how many games Petrie's going to get in this year. I think he's going to be scratched a lot. Part of me thinks, and I don't like saying this, but a part of me thinks it was a possible favor. We know the hometown kid, and we know Dan Petrie and all that stuff. But son of Dan Petrie, Tigers legend. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. We haven't seen Alex Lyon play yet. He hasn't played yet. Not sure when he's going to get in the game, and I'd like to see one of the other defensemen, one of the young defensemen, get an opportunity here. And I'm not sure what the thought process is going on there, but yeah, I mean, I just got to wait and see with this one how it plays out.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing the way that's been going. And we said this about when Reisman added so many defensemen, we're like, well, how are they all going to play? I mean, we want them all in the lineup. They're all NHL capable defensemen. And then you've got, like you say, Edvinsson down in the minors, and he should be playing. So yeah, it's interesting to see how this all goes. Devin, over to you. What do you think about the 11-7 lineup? Do they play better with that setup, or would you go a different way?
I think that they are able to get their best players on the ice more often with the 11-7. And I think that might lead you to believe, at least early on, that they are better with that lineup format. The whole reason why you do 11-7, obviously, like you said, it does, they have the extra defensemen, so it lets all of them be in the lineup. But typically what it really does is it lets your top players get a little bit more ice time too. Because then you see Larkin playing with fourth line guys just to get Larkin more ice time. You see DeBrincat. That was the case a couple weeks ago when DeBrincat scored that goal off of a Austin Zarnik assist. DeBrincat doesn't usually play with Austin Zarnik, but he did in that situation because Larkin and DeBrincat were kind of moving throughout the lineup because of the 11-7. I think that, like Evan said, I think it's probably a little too early to say definitively, oh, they're better with 12-6 or 11-7. But I think that when you have two clear-cut top forwards like they do with Larkin and DeBrincat, it does help to put them in a position where they can get as much ice time as they can handle. And especially at a time where they're among league leaders in offensive categories too. So like you want to get them on the ice as much as possible. But in terms of the overall picture here, it's not just about two dudes. Jury's still out. They, like I said, it gets their best players on the ice more often. But does that mean that they are a better team as a whole? I don't know. I think you need a couple more weeks, maybe a couple more months before you really have a good answer on that one.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like say how long that goes. I mean, we'll see if there's any moves that happen with some of these defensemen. But the 11-7 is an interesting setup, and we saw it a lot with the Edmonton Oilers last season because they had a similar thing where they were doing the 11-7. I think Woodcroft really likes it too for some reason. But the 11-7 is an interesting one. I don't see it very often because of the fact that these defensemen, you don't want them playing too much. Usually the seventh defenseman doesn't play a ton. You look at their ice time at the end of the night, you're like, why were they even in the lineup? You're playing like 5 to 8 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I personally don't like it. I'd rather just do the regular setup. Everyone plays a good amount of minutes, and does work when all of a sudden there's an injury and you just pull that defenseman. Now he's into their defense. But yeah, it's interesting. All right. Our next one's from Don. And Evan, you touched on the goaltending there. This one touches on that. Wants us to talk about the goaltending and Husso in particular. Devin, I'll start with you. Will someone usurp him this season, or is he the starter? I mean, like you say, we got two other goalies here. We got Alex Lyon. You got James Reimer, who's started really well with the Red Wings. Is he going to be the starter, or is someone going to kind of take him over?
I think this season, Husso's pretty well entrenched unless he does something to lose it. We've talked about it a couple times this season already, where Husso hasn't looked dominant by any stretch of the imagination. So there's an opportunity there for somebody to take his job. But I think that you also have to consider the fact that like right now the only guy that could take that role from him is James Reimer.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that they necessarily want him to take that job. Reimer's on a 1-year deal, and I imagine I mean, just based on his age, he's not part of the long-term plans
No.
here in Detroit. Husso's still young enough to where he could be. I think they would rather Husso just be in that starter position and prove that he can be a high mileage starter, so to speak. And then where does Alex Lyon fit in all of this? Like Evan brought up, I don't know where he fits in. I'd like to think he fits somewhere where he's going to play games, because I know if I signed a contract with a team, my expectation is that I'd be playing somewhere
Yeah.
and not just, practicing and sitting on the bench for one game. They need to figure something out with him, because I think right now they're kind of doing a disservice to him at this point. I get the waivers thing. I really do. And you don't want to give Tampa Bay a free goalie. But at some point, you got to look at your goaltending situation. You're fine with Husso and Reimer right now, so your NHL squad's fine. Sebastian Costa's doing really well in Grand Rapids, and Michael Hutchinson's a really good veteran mentor for him. So you're good in the NHL. You're good in the AHL. What do you have to lose? If Alex Lang gets sent down, it gets exposed to waivers and sent down to the AHL, and he makes it, all right, then maybe you just send Hutchinson to Timbuktu. I don't care. And Lyon and Costa become a really good tandem. Or maybe Tampa Bay claims them, and then Lyon gets to actually play some games. And I'm sure that's what he'd like to do at this
Oh,
point.
yeah.
So, yeah, to actually answer the question, I don't think that anyone's going to take Husso's spot this season. But unless he is able to elevate his game from where it's been through October, I think that the door will be open for someone to take that job from him next season for sure.
He definitely hasn't taken the reins completely this season, because of, I think he's struggled. And I said in the last episode that the reason they're winning games because they're just outscoring teams. Husso was letting 3+ a game, but they were still winning. So, and that I said that's not going to last. Well, looks like it hasn't lasted. So, all right, Evan, what do you think about this? With the goaltending situation, is Husso the de facto starter for a bit here, or is there someone going to take that spot?
Yeah, I have to agree. He's been pretty entrenched, and this is the corniest line you're going to hear this week. But when I think about Husso, I think about that line from the movie Forrest Gump when life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And that's how it is with Husso. Sometimes he stands on his head. Sometimes you're like, what's this guy doing? I did think Reimer played a great game last night. That was just a real fluke goal.
Yeah,
but Reimer's a career backup at his age. He's basically been a career backup most of his career.
Yeah.
And Alex Lyon got hot for Florida last year. I mean, he's an injury fill-in at best. But they're gonna ride with Husso, and they're gonna wait for Costa to develop. And Costa had a rough off season. He had a rough training camp, a rough development camp. It's good to see that he's gotten off to a good start, because I think a lot of people have been second guessing that pick, especially with Jesper Wallstedt looking very, really, really good. But no, I don't think, like I said, I think they're going to ride the Husso waves, and I think it's ups and downs, peaks and valleys, just like the team's going to play. But I don't think Reimer's, he's a solid backup at best. And I don't think he's going to challenge Husso.
No, I mean, he's had really good games when he's come in, and I don't think at this point he's not anything being a starter. I mean, I think he was for a little bit of his career there, but overall he hasn't really done anything to be a solid starter anywhere. All right. Quickly, our last two off the rush questions here. And this one's a quick one. We just talked about Alex Lyon. Evan, how long will this last with this 3 goalie situation? Does Alex Lyon get a game? When do you think he gets a game?
I think he'll see some playing time in the next couple weeks here, but yeah, I mean this one's confusing for me. I'm surprised like that if they would have known about that Vasilevsky injury earlier, I'm sure the Tampa Bay would have, he could have stayed in state and whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It feels weird for that. I can't remember the last time the Wings had three goalies on their roster.
Yeah.
I can't think from the last 20 years that they've ever had three goalies on the roster. But yeah, I don't know. I think he'll get a start, but he's just going to get spot starts here and there. And I think after a while, I think he'll go down to.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him actually in Grand Rapids. He's never been like a big time starter in the NHL, but he does have the experience, and that is something that could be helpful for Kosa. But yeah, I'm just not sure. But I think we'll see him maybe get a game or two in before Christmas. At least that's what I'm hoping.
You'd hope so. Devin, what do you think?
Just real quick, I think the last time the Red Wings purposefully had three goalies that they were rolling with, you'd have to go back to 2003-04 when they had Manny Legacy, Curtis Joseph, and Dominic Hasek, all three together. And all three of those guys were really, really good. And the three guys that the Red Wings have right now are not Dominic Hasek and Curtis Joseph and Manny Legacy. So that's a whole different thing. I think to be honest with you, I don't have a good answer on this other than you gotta hope he gets some action, right?
Yeah.
Again, like I said, I don't think he signed in Detroit to practice. He signed in Detroit to be a backup for one game.
Yeah.
I think he signed in Detroit to play games, whether that's in Detroit or Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
In fact, it's a two-way deal for the first year of his contract, so I kind of think he anticipated being in the AHL. It's time for him to get some game action one way or another. Vasilevsky's situation be damned. You got at least four good goalies in your organization right now.
Yeah.
You've got one guy who's sitting around doing nothing, who's not really providing any value to your organization because you're not willing to put him in a position to do that. So
Yeah.
One way or another, he's got to get some games, whether he's wearing a Red Wings jersey or someone else's.
Yeah. I was going to say maybe they'll wait to maybe try to sneak him through waivers when Vasilevsky gets back, but that's quite a bit down the road.
Yeah.
And you don't know what other teams are going to may want a goaltender like that. And injuries happen.
And that's kind of the thing too, right? Like if Vasilevsky was going to be back a week from now, then it's like, yeah, for sure. Just keep him, you're almost at the end, just hold him for another week and then send him when Tampa Bay is not going to grab him. But no, Vasi's is still going to be out for a while. You can't just like sit on your hands forever. You've got to do something.
Yeah, I don't know if a trade is I don't know. To trade him somewhere and get something for him, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, my other off the rush, and it's on Joe Veleno. Devin, what do you think about him being promoted to that second line right wing? Or do you think he's better off being a center on the third line?
I liked the idea of having him on the second line in the wing position. I do think he's a center. I prefer him down the middle. But I do like rewarding him for the play he's shown. I don't think it hurts to give him that look on the second line. Honestly, I'm more concerned, or whatever word you want to use there, about moving Rasmussen to the third line center role. He's fine as a center and he can hold his own in there, but he's proven at this point that he's better as a winger. So I think you've kind of got Veleno and Rasmussen in opposite positions right now than where they should be. But it's kind of, you want to reward players for doing well, right? And Veleno's certainly done that. So maybe not ideal positioning, but I get it.
For sure. Evan, what do you think about Joe Veleno's move to the second line?
I mean, like you said, his plays has dictated it. He's, the confidence is there. I mean, even little plays, like I was watching last night, just the confidence he has bringing the puck up the ice. I mean, he came from a, behind the net, juked a defender and brought it into and with a great zone entry. He even had pulled a little Datsuki and Deke off the back of the goal last night. The talent's always been there. When he first before he came into the league, he was projected to be like a top 5 pick.
Mhm.
And he didn't have a good draft year, and that's why he dropped. And we got him at the end of the first round. The hype's always been there for him, and I think it's finally paying dividends that he's worked his butt off. And like I said, he's still young, and we've seen players in the past who have been first round picks, second round picks, or that have taken a little more time to develop. And I mean, I'm shocked. I did not see this coming. I don't think a lot of us saw this coming. Especially the off season. He had that. He got kicked out of the what was it, the Worlds, for stomping on a guy's leg.
Mm.
Oh wow, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
He's impressed me. And if you ever, it's hard to tell on TV, but if you ever go to practice or you watch him in games, his speed is something that he's really starting to finally use more. And like I said, the confidence is there, and he's already on pace to smash his career totals within like the next month or two for goals. So if he can keep up this pace, I mean, it's a steal, especially for what we signed him for. His contract is relatively cheap, and I'm really happy about him, and I'm really excited to watch him more because it's so far it's been very impressive.
Yes, like I said, he's been a very common topic on this show.
Yeah.
We've talked about him many times, so very happy that he's actually starting to prove maybe some people right that he is still a good prospect, and he not a prospect anymore, but he is a good young player, and I think he's still part of this team moving forward as a part of the new core that they're kind of trying to build. So I'm happy that he's starting to be that top 6 talent that a lot of people were saying he was supposed to be after that first round pick. So I'm very excited for him, how he's doing. All right. Well, there's another episode of the Grind Line in the books. Thanks, Evan, for joining the show and taking a rookie lap. It was a very good rookie game for you. And thanks, Devin, as always, as the veteran of this show, being on the show as well. So we got Grizzled Vet and Rookie coming in. So and I'm maybe in the middle ground. I was traded here for all right. Well, make sure you're checking out all of our articles at thehockeywriters.com throughout the season. Evan, I know you have a couple of new ones coming out or have come out already, but check those out. Check out the Substack. We got premium offering now that game day previews, lots of exclusive articles as well. And make sure you're following us on Twitter and all social media too. And stay tuned. We got another set of games coming up in the next week, and hopefully starting with the Boston Bruins. So that's going to be an interesting game. But until next time, we'll see you on another episode of The Grind Line.